Class magazine. Okay, you may hear this from the radical feminists. Oh, how do you distinguish between exploitation of women and women making free choices? Ask it right up there. You know what people do? They start thinking of what's the difference. You're asking them, what's the difference between exploitation and freely chosen behavior? Well, that might be your answer, but it's interesting as you ask different people. You haven't asked this question before. Try it on some socialists. Try it on some conservatives. Try this. What was the one I was going to... I just thought of a really good one. And it's going to slip away from me and went in Never Never Land of the mind. Oh. 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 No, it went away again. This is called mind blank out. This is a new setup devised by Wesley Mouch. Okay, now, what you're doing is you're distinguishing between one class of behavior and another. For example, I have a number of friends who are objectivists, and they're always accusing people of dropping context. Whoops, I dropped another context. I'll have to pick it up. Now, I ask questions like this of my objectivist friends. Specifically, how do you know when you're fully in context? You want to watch their eyes glaze over. That's some hard work. That's some good philosophical work. Now, if I want to distinguish between here's the distinction question. How do you distinguish between someone being in context and someone not being in context? Could you tell me, please? And if you give a little boy a naive look or a little girl a naive look, it really plays with their psyche. Because they haven't thought about how they distinguish between objective and non-objective, fair and not fair, just and not just. How do you distinguish between fair treatment and unfair treatment? Or here's one I like doing with radical feminists. We can't have this. This is pornography. You ever hear the complaint about pornography? Here's a distinction question. How do you distinguish between pornographic literature and erotic literature? Could you tell me? Ah, yes. One's got Vaseline on the lens and one has Vaseline on the girls. Okay. I'm sorry. Mark, he did it. He caused me. It's his fault. Yeah. Yeah, he's responsible. I'm irresponsible. Call me irresponsible. Okay. Check the question. How do you distinguish between pornography and erotic photography? Could you tell me? Most people don't ask the question. I've tried that on fundamentalists, and their eyes glaze over. They go, I don't know.
They should know.
They should know. I know it when I see it. And then I ask, how do you know it when you see it? And could you teach me how to know it so that I wouldn't make the mistakes that I've been making? And what will happen is they'll devise their guidelines. Now, why do you want them to do that? Because if somebody says, well, I think 25% is an excess profit, but I think 15% is okay. Do you know the average profit of a Canadian business? Anybody want to guess what the average net? How much?
7%.
Net. Probably around 2.
4. All right, let's say it's under 10. You met their criterion. Every business in Canada is non-exploitive. Okay, next question. Well, that's not what I mean. Oh, what do you mean specifically? What are you asking them to do? You're asking them to not just mouth slogans. You're asking them to really connect it to hard reality. You're taking these never, never words, exploitation, unjust, racist, sexist, evil, depraved, or whatever their words are, and anchor it, reconnect it to the physical world. You're asking them, how do you know when it's this instead of that? What distinguishes this from that? How would I be able to know conclusively that something is erotic photography rather than pornographic? Could you tell me? What kind of guidelines would let me separate it in one or the other group? Now, there are a few techniques you can use to make distinctions. And these are questions you can ask people. All right? Fun questions. How would you know one if you saw it? Okay? How would I know one if I saw it? How would I know violence if I saw it? What would I see or not see? That lets me put it in one. If I had a room full of people, and some were engaged in violent behavior, and some were engaged in nonviolent behavior, how would I separate them into two groups? Because in fact, you can do it, can't you? Is that true or not true? Can you separate them into two groups? Sure you can. That means you've got some method of making the distinction, don't you? And all I'm asking them to do is make the implicit explicit. And I'm not telling them what their distinctions are, because if I tell them, what are they going to do? They're going to resist me, disagree, they're going to argue with me. But what if I ask them? Why, then they get to teach me. Let me tell you the truth. Mark, here's a fact for you. The person that talks the most dominates the conversation. The person that asks the most controls it. Do you want to dominate the conversation or control it?
Can you both?
Sure. I'll teach you later. Mike Wallace both dominates and controls interviews. That's why the bad guys don't like him. Now, continue to make distinctions. What behaviors would be conclusive evidence that this fits into this category, that this is exploited, or that this is excess profit, or that this is pornography, or that this is evil? Somebody will tell you that's evil. Oh, how do you distinguish evil from non-evil behavior? Could you tell me? They've got some way of knowing it's one or the other, right? They've got some way of separating them into two piles, don't they? Just ask them. And you know what happens when they start thinking about it? They realize that they're, in a lot of cases, their categories are just stupid. You don't have to tell them. They will do it themselves. They will convince themselves. They will take a more moderate, reasonable point of view. Next question I like to ask on that to help separate stuff. Who do I know who is a definite example of whatever it is they're saying? Who do I know who is definitely violent or engaged in an act of violence? What did he do or say that let me know that he was engaged in violence? How was it different from other people's behavior? Because you're asking people to make distinctions. Now, why do you want to make distinctions? It's so that people will separate in their minds, so they won't glom onto these slogans. I'm for freedom. Specifically, what do you mean by the word freedom? How do you know when people are free? How do you distinguish between free and unfree people? You can do every single one of those things. It might take a little bit of mental work. That's good. Little brain sweat will be good for you. A mind is a terrible thing to waste, and everybody should have a little Vic Tanny gym inside their head. It's good for you. You're going to have an urge. I want to tell you. Here's the urge that I have. You're going to have an urge to tell people instead of asking them. Resist that urge. You're going to have an urge to tell them they can't do this. To tell them stuff. Resist it. Ask them. Don't tell them to make distinctions. Ask them. Because what happens when you ask? It's like the Bible says. Ask and it shall be given. Seek and ye shall find it. Knock and the door shall be open. Ask, seek, knock. If you ask the questions, people will answer. As Mark points out, very few people ask these questions. When was the last time anybody asked you how you know when you're free? When was the last time somebody said, well, how do you distinguish between something that really is property and something that someone shouldn't own? When was the last time someone asked you how you knew when someone was responsible and separated that from someone who wasn't? You haven't had people ask you those questions, have you? They're all important questions, aren't they? And you know the answer, and sometimes you have to think it over and you stumble over the words. That's all right. What happens if you can get other people to think about their basic concepts? What happens if you can get them to challenge their basic premises and test their conclusions? What do you think they might come up with if you ask them some of these questions?
Well, it enables them to contemplate new thoughts, new conclusions, without feeling threatened like they've betrayed themselves.
Right. What else? Yes?
Start asking you the same things.
Good. Good. They might start asking you the same things. And I want you to remember that when they start asking you this in the middle of it, well, how about your views? I'll be more than happy to answer those questions. But right now, I am so interested in your views that I really would like to know. So could you tell me, how do you do this? And you're not doing this as a way of manipulating, controlling, or torturing them. You're doing this as a way of understanding them and helping them understand themselves. Because you got to remember that most people are not really clear on what they're thinking. They're not really clear on how they know what they know or what they really know. And all you're doing by asking them those specific questions is helping them think through their basic beliefs. Isn't that a useful service? And isn't it a good thing to be able to do with somebody you love? How do you know when your partner loves you? That's a fun question to answer. Well, let's see. I know it when she brings me home a card. My wife brings me home these crazy cards. She brought me a card once that had these cows in line for Bob's Slaughterhouse. Right? It's one of these goofy kind of Gary Larson cartoons, and it's got all these cows in line for Bob's Slaughterhouse, and you open it up, and it says, "I'd follow you anywhere." And I liked it. I thought it really said a lot to me, because it just said she was loyal and trusted me and had confidence in me, and I thought that was really sweet. I also know she loves me when she ignores me early in the morning, because I'm a real grouch early in the morning when I got to write. "How are you doing?" "I'm fine." And she says, "Why don't I close your door? Would you like some coffee?" "Yeah, thanks." Then I come out at noon and I can be sweet. I know she loves me when she does that. And I have certain things I do that let her know that I love her. But a lot of times we forget to ask those questions. I ask that question of my wife. I ask it of my friends. My best friend's a guy named Craig Franklin. I called him up and I says, "How do you know you like me?" And he laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed for a couple of minutes, which pissed me off because it was on my dime, long distance. And he says, "I'll tell you how I know I really like you. You always ask me interesting questions just like that." He says, "You're always thinking, you always keep me on my toes. Whenever I've got a problem with something, I'll call you up at 2 in the morning and you'll help me think it through." And he says, "That's a real friend." And he says, "And you know how I feel about you as a friend. And you know I've lent you money before and you've lent me money and we've spent time in each other's homes. That's how I know I like you. And besides that, didn't I put up with that dumb question you just asked me? How's that for a friend?" And I laughed. I thought it was really sweet. All of these questions are designed to get other people to do their thinking. You're asking them to check their own information. You're asking them to make distinctions in their own mind. Because there are differences between just and unjust, right and not right, true and not true, objective and non-objective, exploitive and non-exploitive, coercive and non-coercive. And by asking people how they know whether it's coercive or non-coercive, how they distinguish one from the other, they're able to think more precisely and clearly. And then what happens? They think the issue through. You ever notice how most people don't even think issues through? They just mouth slogans. Have you noticed that? They repeat what they've heard, and when you ask them, "How do you know?" they become acutely aware that they don't know. And do you know what they do? They'll think it through with you. Wouldn't you like to be able to guide someone's thought and assist them in thinking through basic issues? I would. I like it. Let me make you aware of something. Asking these questions is the greatest service you can do another human being. It shows respect for his intelligence, shows appreciation for the fact that you believe that he'll think honestly and honorably. And it does something really sweet for him. It gives him an opportunity to really think about something, perhaps for the first time in his life. Do you remember how you felt when you read that book that changed your mind? I remember reading Ayn Rand. I always tell this story. I want to end this section with it before we go into another section. We're going to take a 5-minute break and then finish up with 2 other sections. I remember I was at the Air Force Academy. It was 1969. I'd gotten appointed, and I didn't know what I wanted to do in high school. You hear stories about functional illiterates. I was one. I'm not kidding. It's not a joke. I'm not exaggerating. I think I read 4 books all during high school, and as I teased Mark, I literally moved my lips when I read. I did not read in my home. I faked my way through class, or at least that's what I thought I did. I sat there and just picked it up and learned it. I ended up with like a B average. And I graduated high school like 230 out of a class of 1,000. I got appointed to the Air Force Academy. And I went up there, and after about a half a year, I was really depressed. It was snowy. You remember the song Jet Plane? All the bags are packed, I'm ready to go. I'm sitting here in a cabin on a weekend with some other members of my squadron, and I just start crying because I don't have a girlfriend. I'm all alone. Nobody cares. All these overgeneralizations. And I felt just, my whole life just seemed pointless. Right? And I went back to the base. We went back to the base after the weekend, and I was really depressed. And I talked to some people, and the Christians wanted me to find God, and I never lost him. And I had somebody recommend, a Cadet Brown, say, you really ought to read Atlas Shrugged. And I said, no. I've met some people who've read Rand, and if that's the kind of people she turns out, I don't want to read her. Because I've met some really bad people. You know, the kind of people that would just be arrogant and snotty, the way I was after I read Rand for about 6 months, and I cured myself. Okay? And I was so depressed, I said, well, how, you know, okay, I'll try it. And so I borrowed a copy of Atlas Shrugged from Cadet Brown. It was a paperback edition, and I took it to my room. And he says, you ought to read Galt's speech. You know, the book was too big to read. I mean, who wants to read a whole book? Right? So I just, well, that was what I thought at the time. I didn't read books. And I started reading Galt's speech. Now, I remember this is in my copy of Atlas Shrugged, in his copy. And I started reading, and I saw words like epistemology, and I had never heard words like this in my life. So I got a dictionary, and I got a spiral ring notebook, and I wrote the word down, any word I didn't understand, epistemology. And I looked it up, and this is science of knowledge. Okay, and that does that, okay. And I would go through Atlas, or Galt's speech, sentence by sentence, man qua man. You know, for all I knew, that had something to do with kinky sex. I didn't know. I had no idea what the phrase meant. And I read words like cacophony, efficacious. Did I mispronounce it?
Cacophony.
Cacophony. I put the emphasis on the wrong syllable. I'm sorry. Okay. And I went through Galt's speech, and I ended up with like 18 pages front and back of definitions of words that I'd never heard in my life. And I finished Galt's speech, and I decided to finish the book. Now, you know how far back that is in the book, right? That's right near the end. And I kept reading, and I found more words that I didn't know. You know, this is an atavistic culture. I don't know what atavistic is. Looked it up, and I keep writing down there. And I finished the book, and then I started at the beginning. So I finished the book before I began it. That means something. And then I read all the way through the book. And I had like pages and pages, must have been 35 pages of definitions. And I finished the book again. And I didn't get a lot of what she said, because some of the words were really new to me. But I got, so there was something really important there. She raised issues I had never thought of in my life. She did me a real service, and it was just like shutters fell down from my mind. And I realized that we lived on an abundant planet, and that human life was an unobstructed universe, and all you had to do was reach out for whatever you wanted. I was very, very grateful to Ayn Rand for, in my opinion, saving my life, salvaging what there was in my life at the time. Had I not done that, I don't know what direction I would have taken. So I value somebody who's willing to make me think. With mind focus, you're performing in a small way what Miss Rand did for me, and what perhaps a friend did for you. I want you to realize what an important service it is. Not just for them, but for yourself. Ask yourself these questions. Now, it's very easy to say, that's really good, I'll have to try that sometime. When, specifically, do you intend to try using some of these mind-focused skills? Now, we're going to take, it's 5:19. We are going to take a 5-minute break, and we're going to spend the final 35 minutes on intellectual judo and one other thing that escapes me for a second. Okay? 5 minutes. Now, mind focus tomorrow night. Where is that going to be, Robert? Robert? It's going to be right here tomorrow night. Whatever room they put us in, from 7 until 9:30, we're doing the Mind Focus Edge. Now, we're not going to go over the meta model again. We're going to go over other stuff that we didn't discuss today. And I'm going to show you some stuff that's going to blow your mind. It's really a lot of fun. The interesting thing about it is you find out your friends are a lot smarter than you gave them credit for. And the people that you thought would never come around to your point of view do come around to your point of view. And you don't have to pressure them. You don't have to push them. They do it themselves just by you asking gentle, kind, benevolent, razor-sharp questions. Just remember Michael's paradigm. Beneath these furry paws are razor-sharp claws. Now, there's a sentence I want to leave you with before I leave the mind focus section. Ever so often, you'll have people, when you ask those questions, who will do things like that. That's a really good question, will be their answer. Boy, that's a really good question. Or, how did you ever think of that? You ever had anybody pull that on you? Women are really good at that. I had the woman I was talking about, the married woman. What? Ah, thank you. I like that. Many, some. All right, Mary. It was that goddamn bitch Mary again. All right, now. very often you will discover that some women will throw you back on that by asking questions again. And most guys, like suckers, will go, oh yeah, I'm really smart, and they'll start bragging and they'll lose track of the question. If you find yourself in a situation when someone throws a question back at you, ooh, that's a really good question. Or, gee, I've never thought of that. Or, how did you think of that? All right, that's a very good question. Let me give you a sentence you want to use with them. Thank you, I really appreciate that comment. And what is your answer to the question? Thank you, I really appreciate that compliment. And what is your answer to that question? Or you can even repeat it. And thank you, that's a really good point. And how do you distinguish between pornography and erotic literature? What you've done is you put it back in their court and let them think it over again. Because you really do want them to think about the question, right? Now, we got two last sections. One's called the reverse macho flash, and the other's called intellectual judo. And I have an interesting situation I'd like to proposition all of you. Now, immediately Mark goes, say, that's even better than me, okay. But can he carry it off is what I want to know. As you know, I'm finishing a book called Self-Reliance Reborn, which I hope to have completed at the end of October. And, you know, they've got a phrase that says, time is money. That's wrong. Money is time. If you have money, you can buy your time to get things done. I want to make you the following proposition. Some of you may not have a set of The Essence of Political Persuasion, which contains, who here has a set? Those of you who have the set, let me ask you a question, and I want to vote. On a scale of 1 to 10, how many would put it pretty damn close to 10 in terms of good?
Closest.
10 is excellent. 10 is, this is really good ideas. I can use these ideas in my everyday dealings. How many of you would put it pretty close to 10 in terms of useful stuff that you can put to use?
I would highly recommend that.
Now, these usually sell in Freedom Party for what, $28.95?
Something like that.
I brought up, I think, a couple dozen of these sets. I am willing this weekend only, before you leave today, to give you the set for $20 Canadian, which is wholesale price in the U.S.
Are they smuggled?
No, they're not. Of course they're smuggled. I didn't declare this stuff.
Free trade.
Free trade, smuggled. Now,
Last time, didn't we, Michael?
we sure as heck did. You remember? They confiscated some of my papers the last time I was up here. Do you remember that? This is the damnedest thing. Does he really... Yeah, does he really believe that gun control is evil? Yeah, let me send a copy of this to the commissioner. They see some of our stuff. Oh, I've been through it. So, you know, I'm a hero of the smuggling revolution. Now, this deals with all kinds of things. Anything from intellectual judo to words or weapons, to language, to metaphors, to very, 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 very effective techniques in persuading people. If you want a set before you leave, I will let you have a set for $20 Canadian. That is
Good investment. I would take the very good investment.
but I'll go further than that. I will give you a 45-day money-back guarantee. You cannot lose.
You write a U.S. check for $20 if you send it?
What? I would reimburse you through the Freedom Party. I'll guarantee that. Is it fair enough? Okay. This is, oh, would I read? Duh. I'm sorry, the brain, he got me again. Zing. This is the newest technology in persuasion. You just got a taste of it. And if you'd like an opportunity to learn it very, very, very effectively, this is a 2-tape set, brand new, called Mind Focus. This sells for $22 US. Okay? $22.75 US, including shipping and handling. I will let you have one of the first 100 copies. One of the first 100 copies. The first one and second one went to Mark and to Robert for only 20 Canadian. Now this is $22 US. That's what, 28 Canadian, 27? It's $1.30. It's about a $7 discount. Again, a 45-day money-back guarantee. Not only do you get good ideas from here, but I want to go a step further. You get to do something really good. You get to make sure I finish a book. that supports your ideals, not just mine. It's about self-reliance and self-responsibility. And I promise you, it'll be readable and fun. And I promise you that when it comes out, I will come up here and autograph some copies for everybody here, because it's been a slice. Now, if you need to write a check, the Freedom Party will accept the check and we'll work it there. Now, I've also been told, I've been told, you say that's not enough. You say you want more. The Freedom Party has agreed that you can get a tax credit for your investment here. And how does that work, Robert?
Just pay us and we'll pay you.
It's just like a contribution to the party. It's 75% of the first $200 that you would contribute. We're just going to pay it like a contribution and give you the thing free.
So that means 75 cents out of every dollar actually is given back to you out of your taxes.
Right.
That's a great way of keeping it out of the hands of statists.
However, if you buy some food, you get your money back guaranteed. We want our tax credit back.
Give me a one of the nice things about Mark is he's always contingency planning. So, if you'd like to do all three of those things, get a tax credit, make sure that I finish a book that supports your values as well as my own, and get a great set. And I can tell you what well-known people have said about this set. Nathaniel Brandon has said that Mind Focus is a brilliant set. He wished he had something like that during his NDI days. And I said nothing, because I had some comments regarding his NDI days, and I thought that silence was a better part of cowardice. Okay? Now, I want to share the last two sections. One is called Intellectual Judo, and the other is the Reverse Macho Flash. And then we're going to go home. Okay? Intellectual Judo works like this. A lot of times, we'll have people, again, this is one tool. This is the ratchet wrench. If you don't like it, use the saw. If you don't like it, use the hammer. But for God's sake, have a full toolbox. Don't only use the hammer. Don't only use Mind Focus. Don't only use Intellectual Judo. Your free society might work if people were angels, but they're not. They're murderers, muggers, thieves, and rapists. They're con artists, dishonest business people, unprincipled people who skirt the furry fringes of the law. Without a strong and vigilant government, they'd trample us underfoot. We'd be exploited at every turn. If it weren't for the government you despise so much, we'd be at the mercy of every stray criminal that came down the pike. This is a concentrated version of some things that we sometimes hear, do we not? Better living through more government. Now, very often the Freedom Party advocate will respond in a normal, rational way. Do you really believe that people are evil? That fear of the law is the only thing that stands between most people and criminal behavior? Most individuals are peaceful and honest. Sure, they're criminals, but most people are pretty good. And since our courts and police wouldn't be wasting their time on victimless crimes, we'd be able to crack down on the thugs who violate the life, liberty, or property of decent people. It's a reasonable answer. Seems nice enough. Now, this exchange follows a standard debate format. The format's simple. First speaker makes an assertion, gives evidence, and provides a conclusion. The second speaker denies the assertion, refutes the evidence and reasoning, and draws new conclusions. Then they move to round two. This is why people are rarely convinced by debates. At least the people in the debates are rarely convinced. The debate format is an adversary relationship, a combative, competitive, ego-heavy encounter. In a debate, the participants are mentally geared toward winning, not discovering the truth. They act like lawyers, not scientists. A debate format may enlighten and persuade listeners, but it rarely changes the mind of the participants. If we want to persuade the person who raised this argument against freedom, we need a different approach. I'm going to reread the objection, and then I'm going to show you what I call intellectual judo. And then I'll teach you how to do it. Your free society might work if people were angels, but they're not. They're murderers, muggers, thieves, and rapists. They're con artists, dishonest business people, and unprincipled people who skirt the furry fringes of the law. Without a strong and vigilant government, it'd trample us underfoot, and we'd be exploited at every turn. If it weren't for the government you despise so much, we'd be at the mercy of every stray criminal that comes down the pike. Using intellectual judo rather than a standard debate, you respond, I agree. There are evil people, and there's only one thing more dangerous than evil people. That's evil people with power. Evil people with the power to pass laws, the power to raise taxes, the power to start wars. A Charles Manson is frightening, but a Hitler is terrifying. Power doesn't just corrupt, it attracts the corrupted spirit, the criminal personalities. As long as criminals exist, as long as evil people dwell among us, big government will be too big a temptation for them. Big government is too lethal a weapon to leave around. For our safety and well-being, we need the Freedom Party's idea of a society. Now, in martial arts, judo is called a gentle way. Judo uses the force of the attack to attain the goals of the defender. Like an attack, an article or an argument possesses both strengths and weaknesses. The assertions, evidence, or reasoning may imply conclusions that shatter the attack. They contain their own momentum, logically, rhetorically, and psychologically. Intellectual judo turns the force of the argument into the conclusions of liberty. Now, not all arguments are vulnerable to intellectual judo. This isn't an all-purpose, universal solvent. Preliminary analysis is necessary. What you have to do is isolate the key assertions, isolate the key arguments and evidence, then ask whether they might presuppose or entail pro-freedom positions. If one of the key assertions or arguments or facts has pro-liberty implications, you have a candidate for this technique. Be certain to verify your reasoning before using it in an encounter. And there's a reason why you should verify your reasoning. Because as Ms. Rand points out, a bad argument is worse than no argument. It implies that reason and intelligent position is with the opposition. It defeats your own position. Now, there are 4 steps to intellectual judo. 1, you accept the thrust of the key assertion or argument you isolated. Accept does not mean agree or sanction it. You accept the thrust of the key assertion or argument you isolated. As in judo, you blend with the attack. You do not resist it. 2, you add your information and insights to the key claim. You use the style and the rhetoric of the original argument. This builds momentum for it. 3, you direct the argument toward your free market conclusions. You use your reasoning from the preliminary analysis and you use their language. And 4, you remain silent. Your goal is to convince the critic of the error of his attack. Noblesse oblige. This removes the need to counterattack on his part. Now, with this analysis in mind, let's take up another objection to freedom. Laissez-faire capitalism caters to selfishness. It appeals to greed. It rewards the most materialistic and panders to man's basest desires. Who could support an economic system which proposes to make a virtue of selfishness? Sounds like the letter to the editor that Mark got, didn't it? With intellectual judo, you say, I agree. Any economic system that encouraged individuals to think only of themselves, to say, to hell with other people and what they want, would be a bleak and barren way of life. That's what's good about the free market. It forces business people to think about the wants and needs of consumers just to survive. To prosper, a business has to find more ways to serve consumers better and more cheaply, to cater to their budgets and desires. The market makes business think about how to make consumers' lives better, less expensive, and more enjoyable. It demands benevolence. The free market is the most humane institution devised by man. Now, you can use intellectual judo on a lot of these basic objections because you realize that our position does not lead toward a callous, uncaring society. In fact, it leads to a humane society, a benevolent society, a gentle society. You can try intellectual judo on any one of these candidates. I'm opposed to free enterprise. It leads to big business. Big business squeezes out the little guy and then takes us all for a ride. Who thinks they might want to try intellectual judo on that? Does anybody? Some of you have used it before. Let me repeat it. See if you want to give it a try. We'll see if Mark or Robert wants to volunteer. I'm opposed to free enterprise. It leads to big business. big business squeezes out the little guy and then takes us all for a ride. Now, remember, with intellectual judo, you got 4 steps. 1, you accept the basic thrust of the argument. 2, you add your own information and insights to the claim. 3, you direct the argument toward your free market conclusions. And then 3, you shut up. Yes?
Okay, I agree, the free enterprise system does lead to big business. However, it only leads to big business when the business pays attention not only to the wants and needs of the consumers, but also the wants and needs of the employees. In order for a business to be efficient enough and to be competitive enough to grow, it has to produce a product that is quality and at a competitive price. This can only be done with quality workers who know how to do their job and are willing to do it to the best of their ability. This leads to a better product for society, for the consumers. In other words, it benefits not only the business owner who becomes successful, but his employees who will be working for a successful company who understands that the workers are necessary, gain a better livelihood, and it benefits the consumer who have more products at more reasonable price at a quality that they demand.
Your hand. Anybody want to try a reverse spin on that? Suppose you, instead of dealing with saying, yeah, I agree, at least to big business, try this. I agree, any system leading to big business certainly may be very callous toward consumers. Our system today is set up to protect big business against the wants and desires of consumers, to prevent big business from competing for our business, to prevent big business from dealing with unions and people fairly and reasonably. It is only big government protecting big business which keeps big business big. If we want small, competitive, responsive businesses, we have to call out for a free market. 2 different approaches, same technique, either one would be useful. Let's try another one. Freedom sounds fine. Eat, drink, and be merry. Sleep with whoever you want. No, I won't say it. Use drugs. Let the rest of the world go to hell in a handbasket. You're talking about license. I can't support the kind of irresponsibility you're condoning. Who wants to give that one a shot?
Yeah, I agree with the premise, but I can't.
You know, Mark's got a great answer. Yes, so?
What's the point?
Well, I agree that we cannot condone. I could run that last part right.
I can't support the kind of irresponsibility you're condoning. Drug use, eat, drink, be merry, to hell with the world. License, not liberty.
I agree. We cannot support this irresponsibility. But what we are advocating is responsibility, because ultimately you will be held responsible for what you eat, whether you eat too much, what you drink. If you drink too much, you will pay. So the freedom that you have to choose to do it or not to do it is backed up by the responsibility that you will suffer if you take it to excess.
Let's take a second shot. Would you like to take a shot?
I just wanted to raise a point. I was told in management training that if you use the word but in a sentence, like you say, that's very good, but the person you're talking to tends to disregard everything after the word but. Is that true?
I use a technique I used to use in therapy. I usually use the word and. I agree with what you say. And it's also very clear. Japan, you watch Japanese businessmen, don't use the word but very often. They agree, yes, 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 you're very right. And we can also notice, and then they talk about whatever it was they were going to talk about anyway. So if you're correct, the word and will eliminate that. Okay? Yeah?
Are you going to recap on that?
Well, actually, there are a lot of different ways of doing it. It seemed to me that the main focus of that objection is you people are calling for license, not liberty. Right? That's an objection that you'll hear. What you're calling for license is not liberty. I agree with you. Irresponsible freedom is certainly an evil thing. Anybody that would call for people to do whatever they like, spill their consequences on everybody but them, ruin other people's lives, destroy the fabric of our society, would be a pretty bleak system. That's why I'm so proud of the Freedom Party. We call for individual responsibility. People are responsible for the consequences of their behavior. If they choose to use drugs, they will pay for their rehabilitation, not you and I through our taxes. If they choose to be drunks, they will stay in the gutter rather than charging you and me to go into a detox center. Or they'll ask their friends to assist, or me or you to assist. But they will be responsible and accountable for their behavior. As Elbert Hubbard once said, we are not punished for our sins, but by them. Might be a way to do it. Third one. Sounds nice for the middle class and rich. But what about the poor? You're just giving them the freedom to starve. To which Mark goes, yes, but in division of labor they'll starve efficiently. No, he wouldn't. Yes, he would. Anybody like to try that one? The freedom to starve argument.
I don't think that's really applicable to that method, though, is it? Does it sound as if you can do
Oh, sure. I can do it on that one. Would anybody like to try it? That's the freedom to starve argument. Sounds nice for the middle class and rich, but what about the poor? You're just giving them the freedom to starve.
I agree that the Freedom Party stance is good for the middle class and the rich. Where are you? I don't know.
So that was an
What
excellent start.
Okay. I agree that any system that left the poor in the situation they are currently in would not be good for the country. Our current situation, our current system is such that the poor are actually more locked in to their current situation than any other system. If they are on welfare, the welfare system actually makes it more difficult for them to become self-supporting. What we are in favor of doing is deregulating industry, making it easier for industry and business to expand, to hire more workers, to be free to be able to train people because it will be more economically sound. This enables the poor to become self-supporting through gaining training that is not currently available because the training now currently is being paid for by the government, which means by your taxes, instead of by the people who will profit from the labor, which is the companies. If we lower taxes and deregulate the industries, they will be able to help people who wish to become self-supporting to do so. Those who do not wish to become self-supporting are not our concern.
Where do I vote?
Should I tell him?
Hey, at least I know I'm doing my job.
That's very good. Okay, now intellectual judo has a number of virtues. It's effective. It changes people's minds. And it doesn't damage the attacker. It surprises them with new ideas. And though it does sometimes puzzle people, because they didn't expect you to deal with it in that kind of way, but it has its limits, as do all the martial arts. This is one of the many tools that we can use when we're communicating. Now, I don't want to keep this over, so I'm going to do the obvious with the reverse macho flash. That is, in fact, covered on the Essence of Political Persuasion tape, and since I've got it down to wholesale price, you'll get even more than that in the tape. What I'd like to do is as follows. If you don't have enough to get either one of these tapes, sets, skip a meal for a day, and you'll live better for the next month by using the techniques that you discover on the tape. I do not speak to you as a hypocrite. I speak to you as someone with integrity. I've skipped many meals for books, for tapes, and for my political beliefs, as probably you have. And I didn't do it out of sacrifice. I did it because I wanted all that stuff. I can't live without books. I can't live without tapes. I steal from the best and fake the rest. And I've been very, very fortunate in being able to share some of these ideas. But before we leave, if you either get me out a $20 bill, and remember, you will either a 20 or 40, either one. You can have one, the other, or both.
You'll take a $40 bill?
$40 bill? How many $40 bills? I'll take 2 20s, 4 10s, 8 5s, you know, any combination thereof. Take it out, and we will get you your tax credit through Robert. But there's one other thing I'd like to do before we leave. Mark, do you have the envelopes?
Oh, I see.
Oh, what a surprise. I wanted to, while you're getting out your, and you can write a check. You'll accept checks to Freedom Party for the for $20 and reimburse that. So if you've got your check, or MasterCard or Visa. Hey, MasterCard or Visa just means you don't have to pay for it for 60 days. Pretty neat, huh? It's almost like free.
Why did they get their money back?
You know one thing I like about Mark? Mark says, inside every dark cloud is a pitch black lining. It always gets darkest just before it totally shuts off. Now, if Mark is handing these out, is Mark handing the envelopes out?
I will be. I'm waiting for you to serenade.
Okay. What I'd like to do is share with you an idea, a vision. And I'm not asking you to do anything I don't do, because I believe actions speak louder. Do you believe that? Okay. I think the Freedom Party is doing a lot of good stuff. One of the things I think the Freedom Party is doing exceptionally well is crystallizing a group of people in a very focused way to help achieve freedom. You're not going to achieve freedom by joining the progressive conservatives or by joining the liberals or by joining the NDP. Their trains are going the wrong way. They're moving in the direction of more state. The Freedom Party, on the other hand, is enabling all of us to begin achieving more freedom today. And I think we're going to start seeing some of the benefits. The tax cuts, the deregulation. I wouldn't be surprised to see in the next election Mark Emery or somebody like him in office inflicting freedom on people every day. And what I'd like you to do is, I don't want you to make a contribution to the Freedom Party. Did you hear me? I don't want you to make a contribution to the Freedom Party. I don't want you to make a contribution to the Freedom Party. I want you to make an investment in the Freedom Party. Some of you have kids here, and you spend money on their schooling, on their books, and sometimes on tutoring your children. Those of you who have kids, raise your hands. Who has had kids? You got your children are a little older? Who intends to have kids later on? Possibly some more, okay? You take money out of your own pocket today that you could spend getting drunk or going on vacation or buying new clothes, and you put it into your children's education. Do you do it as an act of sacrifice? No. You're investing in your children's future because you want your children to have a good future. You're spending money now for your child because you know it'll last your child the rest of his life. Anytime you think education's expensive, try ignorance. If you think the price of success is too high, try failure. It's real high. This is an investment in the Freedom Party, and what I'd like you to do is think about this. Not only can you get some really neat tapes, but I'd like you to consider making a monthly investment in the Freedom Party. Either a one-time investment tonight, or making a pledge for the next 12 months, assisting. I don't want you to go broke. Please don't. I don't want you to go broke. That's not right. I want you to be able to assist in a way that helps. Because you know what the values are. You've seen the work. You've been involved in the work. What I'd like you to do is this. I'd like you to just sort of look into your heart, and I'd like you to look into your wallet or purse and say, how much can I really afford to invest in freedom? And what I'd like you to try is this. Do you think you might be able to invest 50 cents a day for freedom? A half a dollar. Somebody got a dollar. Just give me a dollar for a second. I'll give it back. If you want it. I'll keep it if you want it too.
Yeah, two.
Two, that's close enough. This is 4 days. This is just 4 days help to the Freedom Party. Now, what's that come to at 50 cents a day? That's $15 a month. You've seen all these TV commercials saying, help these children in a country you've never heard of and don't intend to go. 50 cents a day helps children in Canada that you will know and you will be neighbors of. And you want to be free just as you want your own children to be free. 50 cents a day. You're going to spill more than that in coffee. Or perhaps you can afford $1 a day. If you can afford $1 a day, mark down a pledge of $30 a month. $15 or $30 a month may or may not break you. I don't know your finances. If you can't afford it at all, I don't want you to go broke, and neither does anybody else here. But if you can't afford it and it'd just be a little bit of a stretch, just remember $15 a month is at minimum wage, just 4 hours overtime. Is freedom worth 4 hours a month? Is it worth 50 cents a day? I think it is. And I put my money where my mouth is. That's why I'm up here. And Robert did. As did mark. What I'd like you to do is take on the envelope and mark down the amount that you will put in each month for 12 months. Can you put in 50 cents a day or $1 a day? Now maybe your finances don't permit that. If they don't permit that today, why don't you have it start 30 days from now? It's all right. I understand being a little short, stone broke. I've been there. I don't ever intend to go back either.
And some of them are loaded too.
Some of them are loaded. And just because you're loaded doesn't mean that you can't give more money than you've ever dreamed of in your life. Just remember what Mae West said, too much of a good thing is great. Here's what you're talking about. This is 4 days help to the Freedom Party. 4 days of investment. I don't want you to do it for yourself. I don't want you to do it just for yourself. Do it for your values. Do it for your love. Do it for your kids. Do it for the neighbors you want to live around. Because I got to tell you something. If you think 50 cents a day is too much for the Freedom Party, just think of how much the NDP will take out of your pocket each day. Think how much the Conservatives will take out of your pocket each day if we fail. It'll be a lot more than 50 cents a day. And you'll be stuck listening to those people on TV and reading about them in the newspaper forever. So whatever you can afford, could you mark it on the envelope? And if you've got some money in your pocket, if you've got a 2, a 5, a 10, or a 20, put it in the envelope. Mark your name on it. You get tax credits, right? 75 cents on the dollar for the first 200. What's it going to do for you? I'll tell you what it'll do for you. May I keep this for a second? May I keep it? Good. Keep it for a second, and keep it is not too far apart, is it? Let me tell you something. This is a $2 bill. It's not a lot of money, but it is money. The problem is real simple. Every day sort of eats away a little money. You know, you lose a little money here, and you don't think too much of it. And then the next day comes out and you lose a little more money, and you don't think too much of it, and that's how taxes work. And then they take a little more money out of your pocket, and they take a little more out of it. And before you know it, you're left with 50 cents on the dollar in terms of value. And then the government comes in and they take a little more money out of your pocket. And then the next day they take a little bit more out of your pocket. And then the next day they take a little bit more, and it's just a little bit each day, isn't it? Just a little bit each day, just a little bit each day. And all they do is take a little bit of freedom each day and a little bit of money each day, and it's just a little, and it's just a little. And what are your children left with? What are your children left with? What are you left with when they're done taking and taking and taking?
Just a little.
Just a little. Until you finally hit a point where there's hardly anything left. I'd like you to help me put this money together again. I'd like you to help me restore your own money and your own future by making a pledge, by putting money in the envelope. Would you do it right now? Take a 5, a 10, a 20. If you got a 50, and I want to tell you something. If you can afford to put more money in, you have more responsibility to put more money in. I give serious amounts of money to what I believe. I give serious amounts of time voluntarily. And I don't ask anybody to do what I don't do. I want you to do it because of your values, not because of mine. Because of your love, not mine. Because of your future, not mine. Because of your children, not mine. And your grandchildren. Don't you want to be able to look them in the eye and say, I helped. Aren't you glad? And know that the kids can stand tall and proud because they're going to voluntary schools, not government schools. And they're not engaged in foreign wars. And there isn't someone coming around from the government wondering what they're doing with their time or their money or snooping. Help us put the money together. Put it in the envelope right now. Would you do that? We'll take just a minute. Mark it down. When you get it done, raise your hand up and Mark will come get it.
And I'll know who you are.
Mark knows who you are anyway. And I will put this money together with Scotch tape and put it in too.
And besides, he has everybody on videotape.
It's one way to deflate the dollar.
Isn't that a crime to destroy money?
If I thought it was money, I wouldn't destroy it. Honestly.
What would you have done if somebody had given you $1?
I would have torn the dollar into this many pieces.
This dollar?
This dollar? I've been taking the Vic Tanny course. I'll tell you what I would have done with the dollar. I would have said, thank you very much, and I'm going to put it in to what we're doing. Now we've got $3. See how these add up?
Do they have tax-free in the United States?
Yeah.
What day was it?
It's May 17th.
Ours is the middle of June.
July.
Yeah, but you guys are further north. And for those of you who are getting your sets of mind focus, I'll autograph them too. There's only 100 in existence. Everywhere. Yep. I'll bring them back there.